Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are going over the changes made to the Sultanate Order of Battle version 3.04, which is still in its beta phase. These beta orbits were released on the 1st of August 2023, and that is why I'm not doing a deep dive on them yet, because they still need to be finalized at the end of the month. When they are, you can expect a full deep dive video, and if you're looking forward to that, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for when that time comes. I already have a video up on the channel about the general changes in 3.04 that came for all the factions, so if you want to have a quick rundown of the major changes, make sure you check out that video as well. In that video I mentioned an addition of a new rule called Acceptable Attrition, and that is mostly one found on Mass 1 ships, some of them. And it says that provided it numbers 4 models or less at the start of the encounter, destroying this unit does not confer a Squadron Killer victory point bonus to the enemy. This is found on the Temir, which can be attached to any unit, but before that was a simple unit of 2 small ships, and that basically gave your opponent quite a lot of victory points if you use that attached rule too often with the Temir. That is no longer the case, and that really opens up a lot of different builds that you can now do with a Sultanate force. Another thing that got quite a major buff is the new Corcaroli rule. It says that models in this unit with this rule now ignore the effects of the emergency condition. That is the same as before, the language has just been cleaned up. And if you support, you add +3 assault dice to the fray value. However, what is now different is that models with this rule may support an assault if they are within 3 inches of the assaulting model, rather than the model being assaulted. And that is a pretty big deal, because the Corcaroli can launch assaults via portals through the portal focus rule, and that means that you can now get some pretty insane assault values out of them, which is a significant buff for the Order faction. Another small change that was made to deep cannon batteries as well is that you now play your Valor effects before the targets are declared with this weapon, meaning that you can wait and see if your effect gets cancelled in the same way as you could with heavy firepower in the previous update, so that has been brought in line. Ikili Hull also has gained a bit of a buff, because you can now add an additional action die to its repair test, in addition to those given by the model's mass, which means that the Ikili hulls are not just easier to repair during jury rigging like they were before, but they are just also easier to repair in general during the repair step, which is a good change. Just yesterday we saw a sneak peek coming for the Egyptians, and it looks like the Egyptians are now also getting their own specific SRS tokens called the Capri SRS tokens. These are not quite as flexible as regular SRS tokens and are meant to only be used in offense, because as the Capri SRS capacity says, that you can, each model in this unit may launch the indicated number of Capri SRS tokens and place those tokens in base contacts with enemy models. So not any buffing for friendly models for that one as well. And of course any remaining tokens are removed at the end of the maintenance step. And what is it exactly that these Capri SRS tokens do? Well, they do attack runs. They are a type of SRS token, meaning they also work for things such as spotter and removing fog of war and all of these things. But each model in this unit may place Capri SRS tokens in contact with an initial target up to 25 inches away. So again, shorter range than normal SRS tokens. They contribute 3 action dice to the attack run, and it comes with both piercing and homing quality, meaning you can never be obscured against the target and you can reroll your blanks. Resolve the attack run by Capri SRS before any other attack run on the target, meaning you cannot stack them to create massive doom stacks with your regular SRS tokens either. If the number of Capri SRS tokens in the attack run is greater than the mass of the attack run target, you gain the devastating quality as well, which means that the Capri assault tokens really can do a nasty bit of an attack run on the opponent. However, they cannot make attack runs on submerged units, as they are sort of a skimming type of constructions themselves. Capri SRS tokens cannot make attack runs on those and must find new targets if the situation arises, as per detailed in page 26 of the rules. As a bit of a spoiler, by the way, there are some dedicated ships dedicated rather to launching SRS tokens, the Capri variety, but you can also upgrade a lot of the ships to have Capri attack tokens in addition to their normal shooty type of attacks, which means that you can really play around heavily with them in Egyptian forces. The Mirage generator has gotten a small tap on the fingers with a nerf because it now needs to be used on an unattached unit that is equipped with this generator. So if you're planning to do any attached shenanigans through the word unit, that is no longer possible with this one, and models with the immobile rule are unaffected by Mirage generators, so you can't start moving those in any cheeky manner by removing the weapon and starting to give them Mirage generators. There has also been a slight change to the Auricalcite construction, which is not really a change, it's just a bit of a clarification. It now explicitly says that if you suffer a multiple of a critical damage result, you do get a catastrophic explosion as normal. So it's not like you become immune to catastrophic explosions if you have this rule, it's just that you cannot get it if your opponent makes an attack that doubles your citadel value. That's the only time when that catastrophic result is just negated completely. And then a set of rules that is quite difficult to explain, the portal system. Let us start with the most baseline version of the portal system, and that is the portal generator itself, which is something that you can take in many ships. The portal generator now actually places 40mm portal tokens, which is on those black little bases that they now come with. And during the round, any friendly units with the Sultanate trait is now added can start making those or making use of those portals by making an attack run with the bomb or broadside qualities that has a friendly portal token within 4 inch. You'll notice that there are a lot of friendly units and references to the Sultanate trait, because if you play a multiplayer game, you could technically start doing things like having your ally use your portal tokens, and that really wasn't intended. So that has now been fixed, and on top of that you do need to have friendly portals, so no gunning through the portals made by an opposing Sultanate player as well, because yeah, that could get pretty crazy. Apart from shooting with any bomb or broadside quality things, well, weapons I should say, through those portals, you can now also bring in Mass 2 or Mass 1 units with the Sultanate trait again, deploying from reserves, so you can all bring them into contact with that same friendly portal marker, and then they just pop out of it. One thing that has been changed as well is that you can no longer have joining units with portal generators. So again, any shenanigans doing any of those things has now been removed as well. A bit of a step up from the standard portal generator is portal focus, allowing you to create a portal token within 20 inch of itself as well. And during this round, when this unit has a friendly portal token within 4 inch of itself, it can make an attack with a bomb broadside quality or launch an assault. This is the big difference with a regular old portal generator, which is not something that you can do. Units with portal focus can assault through them, and to make it a bit easier, these are the ships that actually have it. The Dogan, which is a named version of the Anatolia battleship, the Retage, which is the main portal ship, but also the smaller Lesath cruisers from the Corcaroli. Also, a bit of clarification: if you use this one to make that attack or an assault, you have to remove a portal token, but that does not necessarily have to be the portal that you were using for that specific attack. It can be any of them. Also worthy of noting here is that this stack stacks monstrously well with the new Corcaroli rule. Again, you can have a bit of an escort, for instance, of Corcaroli destroyers with a Lesath, who can then attack via the portal, and those two destroyers, the Carolus destroyers, can lend a bit of an assistance to it, because they only need to be in range of the assaulting model and not the model being assaulted. So this really makes for a very powerful 1-2 punch of a bunch of angry Corcaroli stepping through a portal and boarding your ship, which is a very strong interaction. And then finally, the last rule pertaining to portals is Portal Mastery, which can only be found on the Ritage, just for a bit of clarity. What makes that one different from the general portal generator? Not so much that it can make attacks through it, though don't worry, the Ritage has portal focus on it as well, so that allows for it. But this one is one that works even better when making your reserve rolls. This does not have the limitation of mass 2 or mass 1 units, rather if this model itself is within 5 inch of a friendly portal token, again the change to it being a friendly token, friendly units with the Sultanate trait can deploy from reserves and can instead be based in or placed in base contact with any friendly portal token in the area. So in other words, this one is a bit of a super reserves unit as well, on top of being able to do all of the different shenanigans. Some of the Ikili hulls have gotten reliable design as well, which makes you roll an additional action die to its repair test. This in addition to those given with the model mass, and on top of that, if you get both Ikili hull and reliable design, it really makes for very easy repairs on those ships. Those were the major changes to the special rules. Now if we look at the Sultanate faction battle fleets that you can select, there haven't been that many changes, except of course for the new mercenary battle fleet that was added, which is the Crimson League one. There is a small little tweak to the Turkish support battle fleet. It can, instead of just an Aydin class, also have a Konya class as a mandatory choice, so a bit more flexibility if you were using that battle fleet. The Egyptian frontline battle fleet can now have a few more flagships because, bit of a spoiler, there's quite a few extra added to the list because, as we could see in the little sneaky preview that they did yesterday, the Egyptian release is pending in probably the end of September. The Crimson League mercenary battle fleet takes a flagship which is a Lyceum class, a big flying flagship, and it has to be that one. It can also be a named variant, by the way, because there are two of them in there. In addition, it has to take one of the flyers from the Turkish trait, and it can spam a few classes, well, up to two. It's not really spamming, but the Nasser, the Hirka class, and the Al-Sakr class, which, if I'm not mistaken, are most of the Mass 1 ships. In addition, you can also have up to 2 submerged units that have the Enlightened and Automata trait. If I'm not mistaken, this actually also gives you the option to take some of the big stompy robots that they have as well, on top of the Mass 1 Automata. If you take them, they do lose the Enlightened trait, of course, and instead gain the Crimson League trait. And what does that do? Well, all Crimson League units, except for those Mass 1s that you've selected, have now got the Elite Crew rule, allowing you to reroll blanks during assaults, and Luminiferous defenses, and that allows them to use their crippled ADV against any weapon with the gunnery quality, which is a bit of a rule stolen from the Enlightened, but lore-wise these guys are very much intertwined. As far as patrons go, there are only 2 options in this order of battle. The first is Princess Scheherazade, which is the Crimson Diva. Costs you 1 victory point, and that allows you to make a full Crimson League force by allowing you to take multiples of those Crimson League battle fleets, should you so desire. The other is Faisal Osman, the Sultan Sirkan, and that one says that all Sultanate models in your force gain +1 fray, pretty decent buff for only 1 victory point, and if the model has the order trait, it gets +2 fray instead. And you mustn't forget, I was just discussing earlier how some of those order units can really launch nasty attacks via that Corcaroli rule, so that definitely makes an already scary prospect even scarier. Well worth the extra 1 victory point if you ask me. Now, before we get onto the ships, let's go to the back of the Orbat to check out the weapons reference, which is where they can be found now. And there aren't really that many changes. A big change, though, is the nerf to the Etheric Lance. It loses 1 die in both its battle-ready support values, so it was a bit too efficient to just spam etheric lances before, especially on Temirs, and get an insane bucket of dice this way, and this has been reined in a bit with this change. But the good news is, as you'll see, most of the times there's a bit of a points reduction as well in taking the etheric lance upgrade, making it yeah, still a worthy thing, but not so much a no-brainer like it was before. A fun new little addition is the addition of the heavy particle cannon, which is again the Sultanate and the Enlightened. They're very much buddy-buddy, sometimes exchanging technology, and they now actually have this great little weapon as well available in their roster. Now, onto the flagships. The first one is actually a very interesting one, that is the Abydos Hover Stronghold. Now, first off the bat, it got reduced by a massive 75 points, but that is really because the old one was just a bit of a placeholder, I think, one that did it all, and it has now been split into multiple categories, meaning there's one with SRS, there is one that has the repair dock, and there is one that is focused entirely on being a gunboat as well. And this is the one that is the repair facility one. It gets advanced repair facilities 4, which is an upgrade with, well, by 2 dice extra. It also gains the large target rule, allowing you to shoot at it from multiple flanks. It also gives you a bit of extra card support through logistical support, and on top of that it can replenish some of your empty weapons through being a supply depot and all of the other bonuses that go along with it. It is also a skiff dock, giving you some extra punch to your ferric escorts that are involved during any assaults, because it increases their assault to +2 dice rather than +1 if they are within 10 inch of this ship. The old model rule also had a bunch of heavy gun batteries listed here. That's all been changed. This one comes jam-packed with all the small little gun batteries, and they're all arrayed in a neatly forward-firing position. And you mustn't forget small gun batteries have been upped to be support value 3 in medium range, so this ship actually packs quite a bit of a punch. In addition, it has gotten significantly faster, meaning that the 20-inch range that you see here from the gun batteries probably is not that bad of a thing. What I do consider somewhat a shame though is the heavy rocket battery with a 360-degree field of view, so I imagine that's somewhere in the top of that ship. That one cannot be changed out, it seems. I'm not sure if it's actually part of the resin hull or if it's just not mentioned yet, but if you're just shooting a single heavy rocket battery, that is 9 dice in most cases, with your opponent getting defenses, you'll be lucky if this just removes the single hull points on a cruiser as well. Well, not very lucky, but you know, a good defense roll will completely offset that, and it's just a shame that that doesn't stack with anything and is just there and cannot be changed. All in all though, I think this is now a good new little addition. I mean, you're talking about something that moves 9 inch up the board every single turn, that can hand out advanced repair facilities like it's candy. It is only armor 7, well, for a skimmer that's pretty decent, and it does now come with extra hull points. It wasn't noted in blue, but that change definitely is there. It now has 16 hull points at armor 7 with Citadel 14. That is a pretty strong little tough nut to crack. One thing that has changed though, it has no longer got an internal shield generator, so yeah, shooting smaller attacks at it might be a possible solution of dealing with it if you're on the opposing end of it on the battlefield. The Anatolia heavy battle cruiser hasn't really seen any changes, but as you can see here, there is now an option for etheric lances that is downgraded to only +5 points, but you know, there is a change in the amount of dice you get out of etheric lances, so I'm not sure this is the way to go with them anymore. You can also now get them with portal generators if you want to before, because that was not an option. One that has seen a significant buff is the Dogan, which is a named version for 255 points. This one now comes with a portal focus, allowing it to launch assaults through that one. So it's a bit of a downgraded Ritage ship, but a very interesting ship still if you want to launch those assaults, because the fray has been upped significantly as well. +1 in its battle ready state and +3 in its crippled state, so you're not reducing that assault capability by crippling it, which is quite interesting, especially because it also has a portal generator, so it can actually create the 2 portals necessary on its own to create that assault. Definitely a ship I think you should experiment with if you got this 1-player starter set, for instance. And if you want to get a version with Fortunes of War, you can still opt for the Valide Cosm, but that one hasn't really changed compared to what it was before. The Hurem got slightly buffed. It gained that reliable design thing. Along with Ikili Hull, this thing is throwing 5 dice at its own repairs, so yeah, it'll be quite difficult to debuff as well. So yeah, good buff for that one. And then the new entry, the Lyceum Aerial Dreadnought, available both to the Turkish and the new Crimson League. It seems like quite a nice little airship to get in your force. It comes with an absolute crap ton of rocket batteries, 4 of which can be stacked to shoot towards the front, but you can also have 4 of them stacked to shoot towards the port or starboard should you so desire. The only firing arc in which it is slightly weaker is the aft, where it only has 2 rocket batteries that could potentially fire at it. You do, however, get 2 heavy gun batteries as well, shooting forward and front and port and front and starboard. So again, this is a ship that very much wants to go head first into the enemy. And on top of that, it's only 2 heavy gun batteries, but you do get focused gunnery on top of that. So it helps with a bit of extra dice and re-rolling the blanks as well, leaving the rocket batteries as the better target for heavy firepower. On top of that, it comes with the Callimachus Chronolath, which is a device that allows you to go back in time slightly and repair some of the damage on both itself, I believe, and ships nearby, so it comes with that neat little thing. And when we look at the defensive stats, Armor 7 and Citadel 14 is definitely on the higher end of the scale for flying ships, and at only 320 points, this is a ship well worth considering in my book. Especially because with that Chronolath you also have yet another way of bringing units from reserves into play, so that really makes the Sultanate one of the factions that can play around with reserves as well, the best I should say, because it now has multiple ways to abuse this a bit. And of course I say abuse because I don't play Sultanate yet. There is also a named variant from the Crimson Diva which clocks in at 45 points more, and for that you get a ship with Devil's Own Luck, which is definitely a nice little thing. Inspirational is now actually worth mentioning, like I said the last time as well. And as a last thing, it seems that lady was able to sneak a little shield generator on board as well, giving the whole thing extra defenses. On top of that, speaking of defenses, this one comes with Luminiferous defenses, that little rule stolen from the Enlightened, allowing you to reroll, or rather defend against gunnery weapons using the unit's crippled ADV. It has a significant ADV of 6, so yeah, you can actually plonk away at a few little hits from gunnery weapons as well, if you've got this one. Great stuff. So all in all, would I pay for the 45 point upgrade for this one, for the unique one? Well, yes, with Devil's Own Luck and all of these little extra things leading to it to be more survivable than the other one. Definitely considering that, yeah. Another exciting new entry is the Pharos Hover Dreadnought. This is the absolute gunboat version of it. All of the little gun batteries in the previous one were swapped out in this one with Etheric Lances. You get 6 of them, all neatly aimed towards the front, as you can see. It comes with that heavy particle cannon, the blast weapons, like we mentioned before. It comes with a 360-degree D-cannon battery, leading me to believe that that one little heavy rocket battery on the Abydos might be interchangeable, and it comes with 2 separate heavy rocket batteries as well, so this one just comes with all the guns. However, as the little lore entry here says, the Pharos taxes its power plant to an extreme, making it a lumbering target, also making it easier to shoot at, but then again, if there's something coming at you slower than the other ones, I can imagine that. And it also comes with a hit to the Citadel, which is reduced by 1 compared to the Abydos we saw earlier. This one does come with a few extra weapons for options. You can have those rocket batteries swapped out, for instance, for more D-cannon batteries if you want to assist with the top one. That one comes for free, but you do pay quite a bit for your particle beamer upgrade, up to 30 extra points to do that. I can see why, because then you would be able to stack it with the etheric lances to create an absolutely insane blast. So I think the upgrade to the D-cannon battery has my preference if I'm looking at this for the first time though. The Retage portal ship, well, I consider it buffed really, especially with the Corcaroli rule, making it even better to attach a couple of Caroluses to it with its fray 14 and its possibility to go up to +2 fray with the Patron, which makes it 16 fray, and then 2 Corcaroli destroyers attached to it, giving it another +6. You're talking about a massive 22 dice assault for a ship that creates 2 portals nearby. That is an absolutely scary prospect. Definitely well worth the 350 points price tag, even though it's not the toughest of ships. I actually personally think the Sultanate might just have become one of the best assaulting factions thanks to these order ships and these little changes as well. The Suleiman fleet carrier was still a pretty good ship, even though it took incremental points increases for a few times. That has now stopped. It's good at 345 points and it remains there. It is not the only SRS option though. We also get the Tanaris control ship, another mass 4 big Egyptian, and I think the third build option with that particular hull. It loses quite a few of the different gun batteries and the particle beamer and everything. It is now down to just the small gun batteries, but just the small gun batteries, there's 6 of them, right? And it still has heavy firepower, so it's not like this ship is not dishing it out when it comes to firepower. It's just quite short range. And that's not the end of the world, because, well, with its Capri attack runs, it needs to actually get quite up close and personal. The one big downside, though, is that this has a 7 and 9 hull point distribution, like we often see with carriers. But other than that, it doesn't really suffer too much from any downsides of being less tough than its little brothers. Well, its big brothers. In addition, if you're finding yourself a bit out of range, when you're launching Capri SRS during the operation step, a unit with this rule with an online portal generator may also place an additional portal token within 5 inch of itself. That is in addition to the ones you're already placing, so you can create 2 of them should you so desire through this one. If it does so, any Capri Assault SRS tokens launched during that operation step by the unit may be placed within 25 of any portal tokens in the area. So again, you get a bit of portal play through your SRS, well, your Capri SRS strikes as well. On top of that, you still get advanced repair facilities too, and in addition to its already impressive mass of 4, that means you're chucking 6 dice at it, allowing you to change it out to other ones. This is a bit of an odd carrier perhaps, but one that has to go into the midfield, but let's be honest, it is equipped to do so. It's definitely not a weak ship to do any of that with. The more traditional SRS carrier, the Topkapi Portal Strike carrier, has not changed though. That one was sort of the first one where we saw an SRS Portal Strike. That seems to be copied to the Taranis as well, and it's still a very solid option if you want to take it. Right, onto the meat and potatoes, the different surface units. The Aydin supply ship is still the cheap option at 65 points that can now only be attached to the Turkish units. Now it used to be all Sultanate forces, but because there is now multiple nations, that has been changed, and it has happened a few times before. And yeah, I'm not going to keep saying that through everything, because I'll be repeating myself quite often. Another thing where I would be repeating myself is a change to the amount of ferric skiff escort tokens that it can take. It can now only take 2 of them. And I know I'm skipping a bit in alphabetical order, but let's go to the reason why that was changed. The Konya maintenance ship, the other escort token. It has now been bumped up to 100 points, which is 25 points more than it was before. It's still an advanced repair facility ship and can only be attached to Turkish units, but when you do so, it automatically comes with 2 ferric skiff escorts as well, meaning that if you were able to take 3 or 4 of them like you could before with other Turkish ships, baseline, and you attach this one to it, it will get up to ridiculous 5 escort tokens as well. So if you want to play around a bit with escorts, you definitely can. Especially because the Konya maintenance ship was mostly buffed to also have the heavy escort duty, giving an extra +2 dice by itself, along with the escort tokens, the ferrics attached to it. This increases any defense value by a whopping +4, and technically +5 because it would be an attached unit. It's very much a much more interesting choice now, despite the points bump of 25. Right, back to the alphabet. We're at the Bayezid Ikili cruiser. The Ikili cruiser has gotten a bit of a buff, well, significant one, because it now shoots with heavy broadsides rather than the normal broadsides. And again, that is very interesting in a faction that quite handily launches broadside attacks via their portal system. It's mentioned here in blue, the 3 ferric skiff escorts. I checked, but that is no change. So again, you can get to something with ludicrous defense values as well by attaching Konyas and all of that. Overall, a ship that if you didn't have it before, it's well worth experimenting with now because of these small little buffs. The battle platforms weren't really changed in any of these beta orbats, so I'm not going to go over them too much. We see the same type of buff for the Bursa Ikili heavy cruiser, which now also shoots heavy broadsides and can still take 3 ferric escorts as well. So again, if you weren't using these before, there's more reason than ever to do so. And now, one of the more scary Mass 1 units in the game, the Corollas Destroyer. It clocks in at an eye-watering 55 points per model, and you need to take them baseline in units of 2, but you can have up to 2 additional models in there as well. They do not have the portal focus themselves, so they themselves cannot launch assaults through portals on their own, but they can if you're attaching them to another order unit that does have portal focus, and well, that's all of them really, so they are now super good as supporting assault options when you make those builds. On top of that, they now are Auricalcite crafted, meaning Mass 1 models in this unit with this rule are not automatically destroyed if their citadel is exceeded by an attack. This has been clarified though in the most recent version that they suffer critical damage instead, because technically rules wise you need to be Mass 2 to take critical damage from an attack exceeding your citadel. So yeah, they pretty much behave slightly more like cruisers in that way. And yeah, they have Citadel 12 now, so again, those are near cruiser-like constructions on their own. Well worth taking, especially now with the attached rule and the new assault options that you get in a in an order battle fleet. No tweaks were made to the Constantinople, the Iskandar cruiser, again reduction in the amount of ferrics and reduction in the points cost for any smaller weapons, also a reduction in their portal discount, but that's something that we've seen in all of the different orbats so far, so it's completely in line with all of those. The Izmir monitor, much the same, no real changes. The Jebel battle platform and the Com War platform haven't really seen any changes outside of things that we've seen overall. The next on the list is the Lesath Exemplar cruiser. This one has gotten the Auricalcite construction, which is something that they didn't have before, but that was a bit more of an omission, meaning that they do not suffer catastrophic explosions from exceeding the citadel twice like we discussed earlier on. On top of that, with their portal focus, they really are the mainstay units if you want to do some hideously effective assaults in this one. It's probably the reason why the first model only costs, costs 155 points, but the next ones only cost 135 points. Personally though, I think if you're ordering this battle box, because it's a separate cruiser set, I would run them alone with their portal buff, and then attach 2 Corcorollos destroyers on it, because again, with the buff to the patron, you can get them up to fray 11, making it fray 17 attacks when they are assisted by 2 Corcorollos destroyers, and that is pretty damn scary, and you will be dropping more portals than ever before if you take or if you go that route. The only downside I can tell by taking that one is that the twin Judgment Lances, I believe, do not stack with the regular Judgment Lances. They can't support each other, so you will be suffering a bit of a downside in it. So there's still an argument for running them in squadrons on their own, same as the Corcorollos destroyers, by the way, but I think it's worth experimenting with that if you're having your next game, and again, send feedback if you have on the Discord channel. The Mehmet Grand Monitor has gotten a neat little 20 points reduction, which is great, and there's also a change. It used to say that it used to be 1 per battle fleet, but that has now been changed to 2 per force, because technically if you had 3 battle fleets you could field 3 of them, and that wasn't really the intention. In addition, the Sultan's Monitor ability of being able to remove a single disorder level at the start of the activation has been buffed to 15-inch aura, rather than the 10 it was before. Mind you though, that this is not for every model in the unit as it is written now. It is just 1 disorder for the entire unit, so it's not quite the same as inspirational. There is a subtle difference still. Apart from the change in ferric escorts, no changes to the Miramar bombardment cruiser, and the Montreal mine layer sees a similar reduction in ferric escorts. The Nimrud supremacy cruiser is now also 2 per force. That used to be 1 per battle fleet, but other than that, no real changes that were not mentioned before. The Pasha used to be a source of much shenanigans. There are not really that important changes, except for the fact that it is now limited to attach to Turkish units, which is in line with what we've seen before. And the Sadrazam heavy cruiser has gone up by 2 points, which is a great deal because it now got focused gunnery instead. I'd definitely pay 2 extra points for that, especially on a unit that also comes with Gunrunner on top of it, and is still fast as can be. So yeah, quite a few other nations have to pay 117 points for their standard heavy cruisers that don't come with nearly as much firepower, so I still think you're getting a good deal with these. The Spartan dive cruiser is only really in there as a bit of an Easter egg of what's to come. No real changes in that. The Temir frigate has been changed. It's been upped to 2 points per model, but it instead got acceptable attrition, so that's a good thing. You can now attach them to any Turkish units without having to fear giving away too many squadron killer victory points, which is a good deal. On top of that, it was a bit too efficient, I think, at 33 points, so yeah, not a bad change. I would still use lots of Timirs if I were a Sultanate player. Where things have changed quite a bit, also including to this first beta draft, I've tried including all of those changes as well that were included in it, is the Hashashkin Fast Skimmer, which is the mass one where you get 2 of them. Their destroyer type weapon with 2 gun batteries aimed to the front. Again, can be changed out for etheric lances that are now slightly cheaper, but also a nerfed version. In the recent version, their speed has been reduced to 12, but they gained linear dash instead, allowing them to go up to +2 speed if they go into a straight line. So overall, they're actually faster than they were before in a straight line and slightly slower in a turn, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, for a hovercraft. The Kopesh Destroyer Skimmer is also increased now in points. It now costs 80 points instead of 76, but it also gained Gunrunner, meaning that if you take them into larger units, up to 3, you can actually get +5 dice to it, which is no small deal because you're talking about something with 2 gun batteries, light broadside and a micro torpedo salvo. So it really is a Temir on steroids, this one, basically almost gaining an extra gun battery at the cost of only 3 points and getting quite a bit of extra toughness to boot. So this Kopesh Destroyer Skimmer might actually be a slightly superior version to the Temir that we saw, which is already a pretty good choice. The Manjet Heavy Skimmer clocks in at 138 points now. I suppose this is the largest variant that you can build out of it, and it has gained focused gunnery, so those 3 extra points, again, would love to pay that for focused gunnery, as that is a really strong rule that ups the efficiency of your shooting quite a bit, because you can include 2 extra models, and that means that you are gaining quite a bit of extra firepower, 1 heavy gun battery, 2 small gun batteries. The only thing I can fault with this entry so far is the fact that it has a silly little rocket battery, a single one, facing forward. If you buy this or get this model on its own, that single rocket battery has absolutely no chance to hit a dent into anything these days with just 5 dice and your opponent getting aerial defense. And most of the times armor is 6 or above, so you'd already have to be extremely lucky, and weapons like this that cannot be changed out really only slow down the game. I do hope that gets changed at some point. What is interesting though is that you can upgrade them as well to have Capri SRS attached to them for plus 15 points per model. Mind you, you'd be paying 45 points for just 3 of those, which is a 9 dice attack. At the end of it, I think 45 points is a bit steep for that, if I'm honest, but you can try it out when they get released and see if I'm completely mistaken, because after all it is an extra attack, and that is an extra attack with the piercing rule, so it might actually do something still. The Messiket Strike Skimmer is a bit cheaper. It doesn't come with that awkwardly placed rocket battery there. It actually has 3 regular gun batteries stacked together, and comes with a heavy torpedo salvo as well. So I think this might just be a very flexible plastic sprue that we're going to be seeing coming out for these Egyptians, if all of them can be built with that one sprue. Of course, I'm not entirely sure about that. These guys pay 20 points per model for their Capri SRS attached, but they do come in 2-1, which means that if you take a unit of 3 of them, I would start considering that, because yeah, you're now talking about an 18 dice attack with piercing, and potentially devastating, because if you're launching 6 of them, there's a good chance that you're exceeding the mass of the target as well. So at that point it does start to become way more convincing, and in fact I think this one is overall so strong compared to the Manjet Heavy Skimmer that at first glance I would almost always take the Messiket Strike Skimmer. That is to say, if you plan on taking the upgrades with it as well, the Manjet possibly doesn't need it. The Sabah is the Barrage Skimmer. Base loadout is with 2 gun batteries, but those gun batteries can actually be replaced for rocket batteries for free, which is probably what I would do, because it also has this forward-facing rocket battery that cannot be changed out. So if I were to take this one, I would just go for the full rocket battery loadout, and it comes with spotter as well, allowing you to receive the ability to ignore obscured with the salvo missile silo that is on top of it. Now overall I think this is quite an interesting little entry. It again hovers around that 130 points mark, so lots of subtle differences between these skimmers, but you're roughly paying the same amount of points regardless of what build you take. That is daring design though, because at the end of the day one of these is going to be the most efficient one, and will just remains to be seen which one this is. The Sobek Coastal Skimmer is the lighter version of that one. There's an option for generators now if you want to, and one that can also take the Capri SRS at 2-1 value as well, bringing it up to 145 points, and it still has the heavy gun battery and the regular gun batteries as well. Again, if we compare this to the Manjet, that just makes me a bit more sad all in all, because yes, you do not gain focused gunnery, but you gain mine layer, and on top of that, something that's not quite useful yet, but this one also gained coastal bombardment, so I think the Sobek really does just outshine that Manjet all over, because that single rocket battery, even in units of 3, doesn't really do much, does it? Now, one unit that was changed slightly in how many that you can actually get is the Alsacer Skybarks. They have Corvette duty, which is a big deal, especially now that you can bump them up to 4 models, making them units of 6 of them. And if you then have Corvette duty, that really is tasty. I've been experimenting with my Saxons in the Crown before, and that really allows for a very castle-orientated force. That, combined with the ability for the Konya to attach with up to 5 extra dice as well, means that I think the Sultanate is, well, the Turkish half of it at least, is going to be able to get to some absolutely ridiculous defense values. The Ausbiri Skylancer hasn't really changed all that much. I mean, it looks like a decent enough gunboat for only 90 points. That is quite fast, reasonably durable, all in all, given the fact that it's flyers. They do not come with the Auricalcite protection though, so that Citadel of 10 is going to be felt a lot easier on these Skylancers, so don't put them too much in harm's way. The Sheshkat Vitruvian Colossus is one that can still double slam, but again, it's a bit of an Easter egg of what is to come. It does look like a very scary prospect. But yeah, at 175 points, it is one of the most expensive Colossi that you can get, so yeah, definitely looking forward to the actual model as well. The Hirka Skycutter has not really changed all that much, except for the fact that it now has the Hydrophone Relay, which is an ability to remove obstruction within 7 inches. Expensive for a Mass 1 vessel, I think. Citadel 11 is fairly easy to breach, and then you're just stuck there with your 4 hull points. Again, if I have to compare that with, for instance, my Crown that I have, they also have a ship that has a lot of hull points, but not so much a high citadel. That's always a risky thing, because a determined opponent will shoot that one out of the skies rather quickly. One that is just a fast little rocket battery one is the Nasser Skyship. Can't really fault it, 90 points for 3 rocket batteries mounted on it, all neatly aimed in the same direction. You could do a lot worse for your points in many other factions, and again it brings quite a bit of speed with linear dash and agile to it. In addition, it also gets Skyfire, allowing you to re-roll blanks when you're shooting at enemy aircraft. So if you want a bit of anti-aircraft yourself, this is a pretty solid option for it. And there we have it. The Orbat that I think had the most new entries in it, so that's probably why the video took a bit longer than the other ones. So quite a lot of changes that aren't really a change, that are just clean new additions. Exciting times, it seems, for Sultanate players. I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of Sultanate players would like to see another plastic sprue, except for that, even though it's a very versatile sit, that first plastic sprue, and it definitely looks like we're getting more of those very, very soon. I hope you're excited for those. If you want to keep up with all of the news for when that drops, make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because I do try to keep up to date with all things Dystopian Wars. And I do hope to see you in the next video. Bye!